Greetings, fellow investigators, and welcome back to our video podcast, Into the Darkness, where my friends and I play the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. I'm your host, Tom Rayleigh. Our campaign is The Curse of Nineveh. It was written by Mike Mason, Mark Latham, Scott Dorward, and Paul Fricker, and it's available from the Chaosium website. I'm the GM, and this is episode 34. Our recap tonight is going to be given by David Gassaway. So, without any further delay, let's continue our journey into the darkness. David?
Thanks, Tom. Things have gotten weird enough that although only Fuller Albright has been cognizant of all the events so far, the rest of us have been significantly deranged to agree to break into Philip Church's home. I quickly made friends with the cats there. We found more bloody remains, which explain why Church is being held, presumably. And indeed, as hoped for, we found the cat's eye opal, the Eye of Lamatsu, which he was keeping under his pillow. So we found a secure location for that at the British Museum that should be hard for any invidious actors to locate. We went to see the antiquarian that Fuller and Company had visited when this whole thing began, and he gave us a hint that there was a shop in Hampstead that he had seen something like a blue funerary seal in. And so the next day we visited Hodges and Barstow in Hampstead, where we found a very interesting object. It seems to be a replica of a Babylonian seal, but it isn't an ancient object as far as we can determine. He bought this Barstow from a fellow named Glover, and so we need to find out whether Glover has the original seal and what he's up to with it. And I think that's up to date.
All right. So what are you planning on doing now?
Where was our physical location right now when we start back up? Are we still down there, or did we go back to the club?
I believe that you're still in the area, Hampstead.
We're still at Hampstead. So we could start with a phone book and see if there's a Glover in it, or how many Glovers there are. It can't be an uncommon surname.
Yeah, there's probably quite a few.
I wonder, we've discussed this before. Were there yellow pages yet? Because if there's a Glover who's a ceramicist, we have a start.
Let's go ahead and say there is a sort of a listing, or there's the I don't know if the operator would know, but if there was one, the operator would know. She'd have the listing.
Right. So let's see, words like kiln, ceramics, pottery, if there's any Glovers associated with those industries, then I say we give them a...
All right, we'll say that, go ahead and do a library, we'll call it.
That's a 70, I rolled a 27, so only a hard success.
Okay, you do find a Glover ceramics.
Well, gentlemen, I suppose that Mr. Glover will be surprised to see that we've recently purchased this antique item. Shall we? This is time for me to finally use my intimidate.
Absolutely. Let's go.
All right. So you travel to the address. It's not in Hampstead, but it's not that far from Hampstead. And there is a small shop with a yard to the side where there is a number of large sheds, if you will, and a and what looks like a kiln that is currently smoking. A chimney.
Are several people working, or is it?
No, it doesn't look like it. It looks like it might be a one-man operation.
All right. Hello, Mr. Glover.
I'm inside. Come on in. You come inside, and there is a man sitting at a potter's wheel that is spinning. And he says, I'm busy at the moment, but if you'll wait just a minute, I'll be with you shortly.
Does he have finished pieces around that we
Yes,
can?
there are some pieces. He's got a number of shelves where there are finished pieces that have names written on paper attached to them. They're obviously commissioned work that's coming. The whole place smells kind of earthy, and with some odd sort of acrid smells, probably the ceramic glazes and stuff like that.
I'm very curious.
Are you folks looking to have something made? He's working while he's saying this.
We might need a number of pieces. We're looking to replicate some lost objects, possibly, some of which are ceramic, for a display.
Well, I'll be finished here in just a moment. If you want to look around, or you can see the work that I've done.
Is it all the stuff that's on the shelves?
It's all stuff for people that have. Yeah, I do mostly commission work.
And there's nothing Babylonian. There's no statuary. It's all jars and pots and.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, the area he's working in, can we walk around it? Is there a back door?
Yeah, there's a back door. There's actually a part of it that slides up. It's a shop. It's a pretty crude shop.
I just wanted to kind of peruse the wall and walk, so I'm kind of in the back door area. So if they say something and he gets up to run, I'll be there.
Okay. So he finishes up with what he's doing. He's put a slab underneath this. He's carefully lifted up this pot, and he's moved it over to a shelf so that it can dry for a while before he does the rest of the work.
Fires it.
He's pretty dirty, but he's cleaning his hands, wiping it off. He's got an apron on to protect his clothes. So what can I do for you folks?
We're there's no point. Who's carrying the seal?
I believe.
Right here.
Thank you, Mr. Munden. Mr. Clever, this object
Oh, yes.
was clearly made from a master.
Yes, it was about 2 weeks ago. I did that. That is, now let me take a look at that. That is number 4. Not nearly the perfect specimen that was required, but that one was taken by the person who commissioned it. I made 4 pieces because you never know how they're going to turn out. You know, they might break in the kiln.
Did you were you using your own materials, or did the commission or have specific matter he wanted you to work with?
No, I believe this is just the standard. I don't know, whatever. I don't know clay talk. It's standard clay.
Well, the original object was stolen from the British Museum.
Oh my goodness. Well, I wasn't aware of that.
I see that you are not. But you must understand that we have to know the information regarding the men who commissioned this work, as there's a criminal investigation involved.
Well, let me check my records. Hold on a moment. Um, Give me just a second to go through my notes here. Was commissioned by Mr. Elphinstone. Odd name.
Elphinstone.
Now, did you have a contact information to call him to pick it up when it was ready?
I did not. He came in. I told him it would take me about a week, and he came in and chose which one was best. He didn't care for the others.
Did you have any luck shifting the ones that he didn't take? I mean, except for this one?
Well, no, not really. I sometimes when I some of these things just go straight into shops or you seem to think it was an antique. Was it at an antique shop?
This one was, yes.
No, it shouldn't have been. Once it's out of my hands, I don't know where it goes. Somebody was trying to perpetrate a fraud. That's not my fault.
Did you make this based on the original or a drawing of the original?
No, this was made based on a piece that the man already had. I don't know why he was copying it. I think he said it's a gift to someone.
If you don't mind, sir, could you describe this Mr. Elphinstone to us? What was he like?
Well, rather, well, I would say maybe 40 years old, rather distinguished looking, had a beard, was a fairly dark beard, but he had gray here, and a full head of hair, blue eyes. Carried himself rather well.
Does his manner address upper class? Or?
No, I would say just, I mean, he was in a suit, but it wasn't a particularly, outstanding suit. I wouldn't say that he's poor, but I wouldn't say that he's rich either. Middle class.
That description, does that trigger anybody we would have come across?
It sounds like pretty much a lot of people.
Just wondering with the blue eyes, if we're like, oh, such and such we know has blue eyes.
He was slim.
It could be Savaggio.
I was thinking, oh no, that wouldn't be. Delgado would be well dressed.
Yeah, Delgado likes to have people do things for him too.
Right.
Delgado only has a mustache, and I don't think the Savaggio had facial hair.
That's right. I was just fishing. Now, Audrey, I would probably assume the name he gave was false. I mean, maybe not, but...
Are you saying that out loud?
Yeah.
He says, yeah, possibly. I mean, obviously, if he'd stolen something from the British Museum.
Is there anything odd about the gentleman that stood out other than the bushy beard that you mentioned?
Well, I would say that, the upper class can have a rather aloofness. I'm not so sure that he was aloof so much as kind of, well, not sure what kind of word to put on it. Dreamy, maybe. With a name like Elphinstone, it seemed he seemed rather
flaky,
fanciful. Yeah, flaky. Well, I'm not so sure flaky. He was, I mean, like I say, he didn't look like he was lower class of any kind. Carried himself with an air of dignity, but...
Now, you don't have any of the other three that were fought? Okay.
No.
Did he by chance leave a number or an address?
No, he didn't.
And I assume he paid in cash, not by check.
That is correct.
And he had a British accent?
Oh, yes.
He was an Englishman, yes.
Yes, not a posh accent, but a
That's what I was.
Not a Cockney either.
All right.
Nothing distinctive about his accent that would determine his
Well,
residence.
as I say, he had almost a dreamy quality about him, a poetic nature, if you will. Had a sort of a gracefulness to him that was affected. Which would make him stand out if you were talking to him at a party.
Is this ringing any bells to anyone who might be tied in with the Wentworth Club? That
Half the people at the Wentworth Club.
okay.
Did you get a first name from Mr. Elphinstone, or was it all formal?
I don't believe that I did.
So he came in with this blue seal and said, "I'd like you to reproduce this as closely as possible." And he gave you, I presume, some down payment since he didn't give you any way to contact him.
Yes.
And then he came back some weeks later.
Just a week later.
Picked the one that he preferred, paid you the rest of what he owed you, and disappeared. Very peculiar indeed. Well, Mr. Glover, I appreciate your being so forthcoming with us. Patrick or Mr. Munda, do you have a card for the Wentworth in case Mr. Glover thinks of anything that might be of use?
There you go.
We any of us can be contacted here. You could also try Mr. Longton at the British Museum. Sorry, Fuller. If you think of anything, or if he should return for another piece, we'd very much like to speak to him. He, of course, might have no idea that the objects are stolen as well. These things move along in chains mysteriously.
And if he does come to you with something, don't turn him away. Take the business and contact us. I'm sure I can find some funding from the museum to politely reward you for your efforts.
Well, that's not necessary. I always want to help the police, or we're an upright. I don't always ask to know where things come from when I copy them. It's just what I do.
It's 1 in a million. You had no way of knowing.
Well then.
Well, unless any of you gentlemen needs a pot, I think our work at Hampstead is done for the day, or near Hampstead.
Yeah.
So assuming we're back in the chatting wagon on our way downtown, the baffling thing to me is why somebody would want to make a copy of the seal.
And not only want to make a copy, but not take any duplicates that were fired on top of that.
Right.
Which leads me to believe that maybe it was a middleman not knowing what he actually was in possession.
The problem with that for me is that Elphinstone was so specific about which one was good enough, as though they were informed. It would be one thing if, it turned up at the museum and it was a duplicate, but it hasn't turned up anywhere.
Right.
And the idea that somebody would steal part of the temple and then copy a small piece of it to give to a friend for a present is not convincing.
Perhaps somebody demanded the artifact, and Elphinstone wasn't willing to give it up, but was going to copy it and give them the copy. And needed a copy that would pass scrutiny. So what I would do in this situation,
if there were still children of tranquility running around loose, and one of them had said,
Now, Tom, refresh my memory, but between all of us, we know enough cuneiform to decipher this. Would there be any, do you have any translation, or is there any clue
Last week, what we found was that it had very pot boiler text on it. This is
Right. Okay.
a seal to protect the entrance from fate and fortune. Nothing,
No. Right. All right.
no name drop deities or anything, you know, just very
So,
heroized Joe Smith.
if this might just be an inconsequential part of the ritual, maybe just to have it there to complete it, but not as a source of power. Maybe it's just going to be used. Maybe even a copy could be used because maybe it's destroyed in the process. I don't know.
Right, that's a factual question. Certain circumstances, clay seals are used to indicate that something is still intact. You slap the wet clay across the doors, and if you open the doors, then the clay is broken. Is this that kind of seal?
It's hard to tell. It has stuff written on the back of it as well as the front. So the kind of seal you're talking about usually is designed so that it can't be removed unless it's broken. This just appears to be a disc with symbols on it. It might have been set on a sarcophagus or a table or something like that.
And it's getting on to the afternoon, so we could all use a spot of tea. We can look through the notes at the club,
Quite.
see if anything about the seal stands out to us. I was so hoping we were only one step away from recovering it. And here we are again with an unknown quantity. We can check the phone books for Elphinstones. I think there are people of that name. It's just unusual.
Could check the records at the club just in case. I'm not aware of an Elphinstone being amongst the members, but you never know. There may
Dreamy
be
poet
members that
type.
I barely even know.
When he said dreamy, I wonder. After reading more of the notes and stuff, there's something strange going on here. I do agree. I wonder if was it an intoxication? Was it some sort of
Ha!
spell? Yeah.
Perhaps the gentleman has been chasing the dragon.
It's quite a
Yes,
possibility.
quite. But then again, I don't frequent such places, so I wouldn't know where to look there.
Well, isn't hashish used in some, Egyptian or Eastern?
Yes, but generally when you chase the dragon, that's opium, so it'd be more of an
Oh,
Eastern thing.
not-
Although I'm sure it's been attributed to hashish users. But then again, true, a good strong hashish would give similar effect. Probably not as bad. I've heard that cannabis is a lot more easy on the body than opiates are.
Well, I know in the Middle East they would have those hookahs and stuff. I just
Yes. Now, where would one get a hookah around here?
Probably Middle Eastern restaurants were becoming very popular at this time. So you might find them all over the place.
Plus, I'm sure that just like most immigrants, they all band together, so there'll
Yeah.
be a little Egypt around here someplace. Just like you have little Chinatown.
right.
Audrey, do a spot hidden roll.
$18 is very good. It's not an extreme though.
Twice this morning, once not far, just as you were arriving at the Potters, and once just now, you happen to be looking off into the distance, maybe out a window or something, and you happen to notice a cat going about its business, walking along the street or along a fence or something. And when you looked at it, it stopped in its tracks and it turned its head directly towards you until you turned your eyes away. And then it went back about its business.
Generally, in cat society, direct eye contact is confrontational, but this didn't feel like that. This seemed friendly or curious only.
Yeah, like you had gotten its attention.
Yes, I'm glad that I had a better relationship with cats before all this than you did, Fuller.
Are you guys heading back to the Wentworth Club, or?
Yeah, I think it's tea at the club.
All right.
And racking our brains.
All right, so you head back to the club, and everything seems to be perfectly normal, the way it always is. You guys go into your private room, and you have tea and little sandwiches that Sykes serves to you. So what's your next step? You're kind of at a loss for what to do. All right.
We need to see about trying to track down this Elphinstone chap and find out what he's up to.
Well, you make some inquiries. You look in the phone book. There's nobody by that name. Oddly enough, when you ask people about it, they look at you like you're being absurd. The name like Elphinstone. It sounds very fanciful.
Perhaps it's somebody in the autistic community. It's a shame I don't know too many of those people. Know how they all are Sir Elphinstone and all that rot.
Well, and it does make you feel like it could be a stage name. Yes.
Yes, poetic and dreamy works for stage actors as well. But again, we don't know what a stage actor would want to do with the seal.
Could there be a magician or a like play going on that could need that?
Wouldn't the recreation of the ceremony be dramatic?
Yeah, but I'm just reaching here, but maybe somebody came across the seal on the black market, liked it, and it's been passed through hands. Somebody found it and is using it for a prop on stage or
I
tarot
am
cards.
I am by no expert, but I think that it's pretty clear that anybody that would have the seal at this point in the game, it has it intentionally. It's not, oh, this looks cool. They will have gone out and hunted it down, just like all the other artifacts that we've been trading back and forth through our hands. So at this phase in the game, and I mean game as in what our characters are doing, but in this phase of the situation, I would just think that anybody that would have it at this point has it purposefully, not just a random guy down the street found it or something.
Well, I know that and you know that, but Patrick and Fuller don't.
Just the whole, it's an interesting thing, and it's aesthetically appealing. It doesn't get us anywhere to why you would go to Hampstead, lie about your name, buy a replica in cash, and be so specific about the replica's exact details. It's someone who wants to pass off a false seal as a real one.
Exactly. And who's buying stuff? Delgado.
It could be that this Elphinstone chap there was, well, he came across the seal. He knew what it was and didn't want Delgado to have it, but knew that Delgado would pay. So he.
Or he's selling one to one party and another to another third party.
That could be. Hang a minute.
Mhm.
Acquisitions at where you two work. Perhaps checking in there to see if anybody's been trying to buy a seal, or
sell one.
Or sell one. Yes, maybe claiming I have found the seal of Naboo, and or whatever the seal is, and is willing to sell it.
I mean, it's worth a shot. We have
That-
nothing right now.
Quite.
It's easy enough to check, but there's no such thing going on.
I would think at this point, if something like that did happen, Audrey or myself would be contacted immediately.
Although I haven't been going to work very much lately.
Oh, but 2
Do it.
days.
All right. You can't think of anything to do. And I think story-wise, you're at a point where you really don't know what you want to do. Is there anything else you want to do at this point? Any other investigations you want to pursue? Or we could actually move ahead a few days.
I think the only thing, like, there's so much in the club archive that a lot of time pouring through that looking for another clue. But I don't have any intention for her in terms of physical exploration.
Okay. Well, your leads seem to have dried up. And a few days pass. And one morning you are all in the club discussing various things. When Audrey, you notice something in the newspaper that catches your eye. It's in fact a rather large headline.
Terror at London Church, 7 dead. June 14th, and that's it's June, or July is when we open the temple, so a month and a change. Police were called to St. Luke's Episcopal Church yesterday evening by concerned parishioner Warren Oaksley. Mr. Oaksley, 32, told how he had been late for evening service, and on arriving at the church found the doors locked. Mr. Oaksley heard terrible sounds and screams coming from within the church and called the police. On breaking the church door open, the police found a scene of chaotic devastation. 7 people are confirmed dead, with 21 admitted to hospital with various injuries. Many of the victims were so traumatized that they had become completely unresponsive, while others babbled incoherently. The police are at a loss to explain what took place. One possible lead, Mr. Oaksley claims he saw 2 men walking away from the church just as he arrived. He did not recognize them as members of the parish. The premises have now been sealed off. Police are appealing for witnesses to come forward if they can offer to shed any light on this tragic situation. Well, pointing it out to the others, that sounds like the kind of chaos that's been following this.
Absolutely.
No, actually, it doesn't. I mean, if you think about it, all the trouble we've run into, for the most part, except for the cats, has been a man-made thing. Well, what's somebody going to do that's going to kill 7 people and put 21 in the hospital?
Well, I mean, the thing that attacked Mr. Rayburn Price upstate could have done that much damage if it had been in a populous area.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And that shadow creature.
Yep, that's what I was going to say.
It certainly, nothing in the article was very concrete.
Was the Was the minister one of the dead?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. They didn't tell you anything about the injured or the fatalities. But if no one inside can tell them anything useful,
Well,
they didn't
that's
say
what
anything
the
about what kind of violence it was either. Just devastation.
Might be worth
that's
poking into.
yeah, and that's what the newspaper said. The facts often aren't found in the paper.
True.
Maybe we
Quite.
should.
They don't want to frighten people.
Yeah.
Maybe we should investigate the church.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but do not all churches have like a parish book or a list of?
Yes, most do.
Well, maybe if we go and cross-reference some names on there, we might find an interesting name or two.
Certainly, if there were an Elphinstone who attended church there, it would be worthy of note.
Well, not only that, but maybe Thompson or who knows? It definitely begs to be investigated.
And I think there are at least 3 venues. I mean, one is the witness, Mr. Oaksley. One is you gentlemen have a contact at Bedlam. Presumably, these people who were carried out babbling have been put in an institution. And you were also speaking to Scotland Yard earlier. So if you have any warm relations with anyone there, we might be able to get a better idea of what, even a description of what kind of violence took place. And I wonder if the church is open.
I think. Well, I thought they said it was sealed. Perhaps the best bet would be to start off at Bedlam. If some of the people that were emotionally traumatized were put in Bedlam, we've been in Bedlam countless times. I mean, we're well known there.
Well, let's start with a phone call to that doctor that was taking care of.
Note that this happened yesterday evening.
Okay.
Perhaps a trip to the church. Maybe we can find out a thing
Yeah.
or 3.
Trip to the church is a must.
Yes, that's what I would do.
You gentlemen have more experience with this madness than I have.
All right. Is that what you want to do?
Yeah.
Right. The church is Orsini Crescent, Kentish Town, North London, St. Luke's Church. All right. As you pull up in front of the church, it's a nice little church. You can see almost immediately, because you're looking for something to be wrong, that some of the stained glass on the side of the church has been smashed. And there is a sign on the door. You can't read it from the car.
Yeah, it'll be a police sign saying "Do not enter crime scene."
Well, let's have a look. I'm going to hop out and head on over.
All right. You go up the steps of the church, and the sign says "No admittance until further notice." Police, not however they would, by order
Door
of the
shut,
police.
door shut, or is door missing?
Doors are open. Doors are closed. Sorry,
Doors are closed.
they're big, heavy wooden doors.
Okay, is there anything blocking the way to have a look inside where the stained glass is crushed?
It's about 7 feet off the ground.
Oh, okay.
Probably an entrance. Probably an entrance at the back of the church,
Yes, let's have a look.
where the rectory is. I'm sorry, they're Episcopal. I'm Catholic. I don't know.
It's same.
No,
they
it'd be
have a
very
rectory.
similar. It'd be very
Okay.
similar.
Strange, it's not Church of England.
You go to the back, and there are indeed doors, but looking through the small windows in the doors, you're just looking into a small room, probably a vestiary or whatever, so you can't see into the church.
Sacristy.
Sacristy, yeah.
Try the door.
Locked.
Anybody good with picking locks? Where exactly is this church located?
North London.
No, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Is it like country or downtown area?
No, it's a red brick church right in the middle of town.
A lot of people walking around?
There's people.
Strong arm the door.
Do you want to try it?
Yeah,
All right. Go
I'm
ahead
not-
and
I'm not that strong.
roll a strength roll.
All right.
Fairly heavy doors. They're not these cardboard doors we have nowadays.
I made it, but I mean, it's nothing spectacular. A 49 out of 55.
Yeah, no, you didn't. You bashed up against it. You can't open this door.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
pretty-
not strong. I'm a wisp of a man.
Are you
Any other
dreamy
windows we
and
could look
poetic?
into?
I'm sorry, Ford?
Any other windows we could look into that might not be quite so?
Not really. All the church ones are too high for you to without a ladder to peek in.
There wouldn't have to be a ladder nearby.
It's because the church is built up off the ground.
Yes.
Besides, stained glass windows are going to be too you wouldn't be able to see through them very well.
Mm.
Oh, that's the broken ones. I sent a text, Tom.
Oh.
Wow.
All right. Yeah, I guess there always are, Audrey.
So who is there any listing out front who the priest is?
Yes. I just had it. Hold on. Oh, I should just do it. We'll say it's the vicar's name is John Bradley.
Mm.
Would there be a parsonage with the church, like the vicar's house?
Usually it's connected to the church. It's the rectory. Yes. The rectory is built into the back of the church.
Oh, right. Yeah, there's probably a little cottage on the property.
Shall we visit the vicar?
Can't hurt to knock on the door.
No.
Okay. You go to the vicar's house. There's a sign in front that says Pastor John Bradley or Reverend. I don't know what their titles are. Reverend John Bradley. Probably THD, Doctor of Divinity. You knock on the door. There is no answer.
So he's not home. He could be one of the people that were killed or in the hospital.
Or visiting the people hurt in it too.
Yeah, that good thought. But I would think that he would be in the middle of it. He was either one of the dead or one of the injured. I would think that he would be the prime target, if you will.
So my next guess would be, you think you guys want to go to the name that was in the paper? The witness?
Yeah, I think Mr. Oaksley might be bombarded by press right now, or the like, but that might even be a way in.
I mean, I think it's our only other option.
Well, I also think that we should head out to Bedlam and speak there, see what we can find out at Bedlam.
Well,
it wouldn't hurt to speak with the police, see what they could tell us. If they could tell us anything.
Yeah. Fuller, don't you know the one doctor over there? Maybe give him a call before we waste time going all the way over there for nothing.
Patrick, do a luck roll.
41 out of 50.
All right. You notice uh, uh, on the other side of the church, there's another little cottage. You notice an old woman draw back the curtains and peek out, and she's sort of looking at you all standing there. If you wave at her, she immediately closes the curtains, and you see her probably going towards the front door of her house. And she starts to come out onto her porch, but you can see that she's got a cane. So she looks like she's just standing there looking at you, or maybe she just doesn't want to walk all the way over to where you guys are.
Hey guys, nosy neighbor. She probably sits there all day and night looking out. She might know something.
Yes, right. Let's have a look.
Start walking over.
Also, I just thought of something. No one answered at the cottage. Usually the minister has a housekeeper.
Maybe. I never knew a priest that had a housekeeper.
Yeah, it's not uncommon.
Yeah?
Especially in the Catholic Church.
Oh.
Same thing with the Anglican Episcopal Church.
Yeah. Some women serve the church that way by cooking the dinner and taking care of the priest.
So I approach with the group.
All right. And she's standing there and she's looking at you and she's shaking her head and she says, "Oh, it's a terrible, terrible tragedy."
What happened exactly?
You must have read it in the newspaper.
But that's all we know, and we knew some people that did go here, and I mean, we friends, colleagues.
Who did you know? I've been going to this church for the past 39 years.
Janet Smith?
There's no Janet Smith in this congregation. I suppose
that was
you're.
The other place there. Don't you remember, Mr. Longman? Janet goes to that church, St. George's.
I'm the wife of the church warden. I know everybody.
Ah, quite. Yes. Well, we just heard about this tragedy here, and well, what exactly happened?
Look, we've had a terrible tragedy. If you're just curiosity seekers, then be on your way.
No, it just seems very odd that it just mentions a tragedy in the paper, and from what we heard from our friends, and well, details, ma'am. There's not a lot of details.
You're probably with the newspaper.
Oh no, not at all. I'm actually I'm actually self-employed, as it were. It's as a antiquarian. Yes. Like I said, we had friends that came here, and we heard about the tragedy here, ma'am, and well, we just like to know what exactly happened. The papers are so vague, you see. It's so vague, and well, what did happen here?
I don't know who you people are.
No,
do a charm roll or a persuade roll.
Let's see, what do I got there?
Good ma'am.
I got fast talk. Will that work?
I'm sorry,
truth, he said he had fast talk.
No, it's different.
Okay.
In truth, we are members of the Wentworth Club, and we are investigating a rash of strange murders that have been happening as of late.
And you think that might be connected somehow to the church?
It's a possibility. The crimes that we're investigating are extremely bizarre, madam. And it's a possibility that what happened here at this church might be it. This is why we want to know this information. So we should know if we should investigate further or go on our way.
Well, you certainly should find out what was going on.
Certainly should. Madam, I'd like to make it very clear that I'm sorry, what's your last name, madam?
What's your name?
I'm Miss Audrey Leicester. And
Hazelwood London, ma'am. I do apologize for my
Dorothy, Dorothy Simmons.
Oh,
Mrs. Simmons, thank you very much for speaking with us. I understand why you're suspicious, but I'd like to impress upon you the seriousness of this matter. These gentlemen and I, who've recently joined them, have been pursuing questions of supernatural violence for the better part of a year now. These are not the first deaths to occur, and there will be more deaths that will occur if we cannot find out what happened here last night. As the wife of the church warden, you should be better informed than nearly anyone, and I hope that you should be forthcoming, because it might be a matter of life or death.
Oh my. Well, I was late for church, and I came over here, and I could hear some strange noises coming from inside the church, and I went up to the doors and I tried the doors and they were locked, and I pulled that bench over there up to the side of the church, and I climbed up to see what was going on inside. And there was I don't know how to describe it. A strange man was up in the front of the church, and he was spouting a bunch of non-biblical nonsense, and the people began to riot. They overturned the pews, and they started shouting strange, babbling words like they were speaking in tongues. And I became very frightened, and I climbed back down and started going to my house when I saw the side door on the church open, and two men came out, and they didn't see me, and they started walking away, and the one of them, the taller of the two, the older of the two, he said something to the other one like, please hurry, we need to leave. And he called him something strange, like, well, it doesn't sound like a name like any other name, sort of like Nubu or Newbie or
Nabu.
That's the name.
That's the taller, older fellow called the other fellow that name?
Yes, the other gentleman was somewhat shorter. They were both thin, and he had a very slight mustache and black hair. The other one was much taller, also thin, and had a beard.
Indeed. And thank you very much, Mrs. Simmons. I can tell you already, as you saw, I recognize the name Nabu. This is quite important to the work we've been doing. Can you tell me anything about the strange sounds that you heard at the beginning?
Well, like I say, they were just wailing noises, like, and the people inside, some of them were obviously terrified and trying to get away, while many of them were just standing and rocking side to side.
As if entranced.
Yes.
And the one who was screaming, you say it was non-biblical, but was it words you understood?
No.
And that was...
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes. Something about it. I thought at first he was talking about the second coming. But
Oh, he was describing some transformation in the near future.
very much like something from the apocalypse, but not from the apocalypse.
And that was the
Kind of,
taller fellow with the beard or the shorter fellow with the mustache?
That was the shorter fellow with the mustache.
just a kind of a question here, ma'am. Do they rent out the church or
Oh,
the
no.
church property to?
No, it was supposed to be Vespers yesterday evening.
Okay, so it would be something that would be just standard. The standard crowd of churchgoers would be here for.
Well, and I saw it when I called the police. I called the police immediately after that, but they arrived very quickly. I think somebody else must have also called the police, and I watched from my window as they brought bodies out and people who were they seemed hysterical.
Did you recognize any of the people there, or were they?
They're my congregation. Of course, I recognized everybody, including Father Bradley.
My.
And your husband, is he well?
My husband, yes, he's fine. He's very sick.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear it, but I'm glad that you were late and that he was unwell.
I don't know what happened. I haven't seen inside the church, but it sounded like they were destroying the inside.
It's all very disturbing.
Would you buy? I'm sorry. Go.
No, go ahead, Fuller.
I just, I'm sorry, but would you by chance have the key so we could go inside?
The police don't want anybody to go inside. But yes, I have keys. And she sort of looks around.
Again, Mrs. Simmons, the police don't know about this Naboo. The police don't believe any of a number of things that we do. I can assure you, it won't disturb anything physically. We'll just see what we can see.
Well, I suppose it wouldn't hurt.
I'd appreciate it very much.
She goes back inside for a few minutes and gets her keys, and she comes back out, and you hear her say something like, "Harry, I'll be back in a few minutes," and she gets the keys and she comes out, and it takes her a bit of time to get to church, just next door, but she seems like a frail little old lady. All right, so you come up to the front doors of the church, and she unlocks them and opens them up. What you see is a good example. It's pandemonium. Pews have been knocked over. Church furniture has been smashed. There are not too much, but there are smears of blood where people were injured. There are church hymnal books that have been torn to shreds and thrown everywhere. So there's paper everywhere. Part of the carpet has been ripped up. There's places in the walls of the church where it looks like people dug in with their fingernails and clawed. And she's immediately shaken by this. She's going to do a sanity roll. Oh, she got a 95. Oh,
Mrs. Simmons,
it's horrible. It's horrible.
You don't have to come in with us, Mrs. Simmons. You can.
I'll just sit out here.
Please. How's the altar, etc.
It's
damage-wise?
Well, their altar is a fairly heavy block of probably marble, so it's not damaged. But all of the stuff that was on it, the tablecloth, whatever the I don't know how they arranged the candlesticks. That's all been pulled off. It's lying on the ground. Maybe there's a chalice lying on the ground somewhere. There's a bottle of broken wine, probably from the inside the sanctuary.
Jesus himself is where he belongs, though.
He's on a cross high up on the wall, so yeah, not easily
He was
reached.
out of the fray.
Right.
And there's nothing. So around the altar, there's nothing that suggests the air of Mesopotamia.
No.
There's no broken blue seal or.
There's also there's a lot of sawdust, and you assume that it's to soak up whatever was there, the blood, the urine. The police probably did that.
No striking, unusual scent.
Well, it doesn't smell good.
But it doesn't smell like frankincense or, anything definable.
But do a spot hidden roll.
All of us?
Yeah, you're all looking around the church.
And I failed. 81.
Oh, a 6.
Okay.
A regular success.
All right.
Regular success.
Well, Fuller's walking around and he's kicking some of the piles of hymnal paper and stuff on the floor. And he notices, Fuller, you notice that there seems to be some marks on the floor directly in front of the pulpit. And when you start moving all of these hymnal pages out of the way, you realize that there is a place where the tile floor, it's not expensive tile. It looks like it might even be linoleum tile. It's melted. And it's melted in a circle about 6 feet around. The ground is scorched in that circle.
Does there appear to be like drawings,
No.
symbols?
Mm-mm. Just a circle. But do a Cthulhu Mythos roll if you want to.
Oh, come on, man.
There's always a chance. You roll
Holy
more.
shit! I made it. I rolled a 3 out of 4%.
Well,
Oh,
you have the very strong feeling that it was some sort of a magical gate
Oh, okay. Ew.
that was opened. You can
So
see
if I was-
now
So-
that there are. You can see now that there are bits of the church interior that have been damaged that have been very hard for people to have done.
So if I recognize it as a gate, first thing I'd have to ask is, I'm going to take a sanity loss for that?
Sure. Yeah, do a sanity roll. You might, I don't know, you guys are pretty hardened. You guys are expecting to see weird stuff. This
92.
damaged church isn't gonna.
92, I failed it.
Yeah, just
needless to say.
take 1 point of damage.
Oh.
I mean, after all, it's not somebody being eaten alive by cats.
Right, but it's Cthulhu Mythos, so
Yeah.
I'm like putting together the picture, the pieces of the puzzle here. Can't believe I rolled a 3. Shit.
I believe that Fuller must have made an interesting noise when he had that revelation. So I'm
Yeah.
going to go up there and see if anything is suggestive to me.
Yeah, because the skill's only at a 4%, so it's like, all
Well-
right. I explained to him what it is in occult terms, not mythos terms, in occult terms.
Okay. Audrey, Munden, are either of you guys in this game Church of England or Episcopalian? Or were born and raised such?
Yes.
Well,
How
I've
about
been,
Patrick? I forget you're Patrick now. You're not an American.
I would guess Church of England.
Yeah,
I
Anglican.
believe. Yeah.
It's the same difference, really. But
Yeah, it's the same thing. Administration's a little different. The three of you do spot hidden rolls.
98. I stubbed my toe and I'm like,
yeah, 85. I'm thinking about dimensional gates.
standard success.
Okay.
51.
You guys are looking at this gate, and Munden, as you're looking at the gate, your focus suddenly leaves the gate and starts looking at all of the torn up hymnals. And when you look down at the hymnal, you realize that it's not in English. It seems to be written phonetically in English, but the words don't make any sense. And you guess that they might be in, if there's a pronunciation key for Sumerian, that they might be phonetically written in Sumerian. And they're all that way. And there's no crosses on them, and there's no gold lettering. The whole book itself, the books themselves have been transformed into some other book.
Or brought in.
Well, it's all of them. As you look around the church, you realize all of the hymnals have
Well,
been replaced.
are the hymnals looking new, or do they look
No.
like they're well worn?
They look like old hymnals that have been all torn up into shreds, but they
And
don't look
probably
like the.
Yeah, and in various degrees of wear as well. Is there copyright information?
No, there's not. Now, if you wanna look for one, you might find one that's intact.
Yeah, let's
What
find
I'm
the most
looking for.
complete copy.
All right.
And I assume that on the first page of it, whether that's in the front or the back, I'm not sure, but I'm sure we're going to see the sounds na and boo.
Well, what you in fact, when you start looking at the book, it's not Nabu, but your best guess would be that it says Ebon.
Ebon.
Yeah, and if you guys have Cthulhu Mythos, you can roll that again.
Yeah, right. No. No.
I was going to say, Fuller, you get more single-digit numbers than anybody else. All right, anybody else get it? No.
Don't have Cthulhu
All right.
I don't have any.
I don't have that.
There's only transliterated Sumerian. There's no images or anything.
Correct.
Try and find at least a couple of these to take with us to.
Yeah, even if we can get some good halves.
Oh,
Yeah, you find one.
oh my. Oh my. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no.
Mr. Munden?
It's no, no, no. Whoa. That statue that you initially found there, Mr. Albright, the gold one.
Yes,
What was it of?
it was of Naboo.
Yes, but as I recall from the notes, it was rather unique.
Naboo Ascending, I remember reading. I believe.
I'm looking right over at the melted area where the gate was. Naboo Ascending. And the statue, it showed Naboo, something coming out of Naboo, or Naboo coming out of someone?
Yeah, I believe wasn't.
It was described as if Naboo was coming out of a prostrated human form.
Yes, and what did that bearded gentleman call the thin mustached gentleman?
He was talking about Naboo, yes.
No, called him Naboo.
I think that's what Miss Simmons said, but it sounded like he was actually talking to Delgado.
No, no, no. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no. Should, ma'am, gentlemen, I think we've got an issue. Maybe going out on a limb on this, but oh no, 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 no. Oh no.
Deep breaths, Mr. Munden.
What? This, oh no. Oh God, this might make too much sense, but, um, how do I describe? How do I describe it? What is the whole purpose behind Naboo ascending? Why would you have Naboo ascending, coming out of someone? Was that part of the ritual? Is that part of this thing there, Mr. Albright? That you must have an ascended Naboo, or
Actually, although the figure was ascending to the sky, the name it was given was Naboo Incarnate.
Naboo Incarnate. Oh
And
God, no!
and Delgado. We should get out of here and let Miss
Let's
Simmons
get out
lock
of
up and
here.
go home.
I need a stiff drink. I think I've. Oh my! Let's go to the wagon and talk. Let's get out and go to the wagon.
Audrey and Patrick, do idea rolls for your memory.
77 out of 90.
5 out of 90.
Oh.
Take that, Patrick.
Audrey looks at Patrick and sort of gives him a look. And Patrick reads the look. And the both of you think at the same time, didn't memes refer to the scrolls as the rite of ascension? The scrolls of ascension?
That's where ascension came from, Patrick. That's what the scrolls are for.
Oh God, no! Can I make a hand roll?
Sure.
All right.
And
Munden has it figured out.
And Delgado
I
was.
it, but I'm gonna take one, or actually, I'll make two. Actually, this revelation is pretty intense.
Delgado wants to live forever, and Naboo wants to return.
I think Naboo's come back.
It's one thing to get in the way of an arrogant rich man. It's another thing to get in the way of an arrogant rich man that's got a deity inside him.
No. I don't think we have Delgado anymore.
Right.
I think what has happened is this.
Deity has taken over Delgado's body?
Yes, I think what happened here was a. Hear me out. Hear me out. They need, in order to do whatever they need to do, they need to bring Naboo back incarnate. They need a ritual to do it. They need power and faith to do it. What it seems is they came here, took advantage of these people who were here to meet up, of people of faith, people in the church, a place of faith, to, shall we say, help enact this ritual. And the long and the short of it is that the ritual has put Naboo into Delgado, and the other one sounds like our Mr. Elphinstone, who might actually be, shall we say, this larger than life individual, Mr. Gamatov's warlock, perhaps. Even sounds even more plausible here. But it seems like they hijacked these people. These poor people were hijacked in that they were given these blasphemous prayer books to enact this ritual, help enact this ritual, bring about faith in a place of faith, to bring Naboo, and Naboo is now back in Delgado, or it is Delgado, or they're both together, or something like that. But Naboo is back, and that can't bode well for the future, especially with the temple and such. And I need a drink. Blimey.
Question: are we still in the church or did we leave?
I think you've left.
Yeah.
Can I make a retroactive
Sure.
spot hidden? I wanted to see if there was any pieces of broken clay sealed. No? Okay.
There is broken glass, but there's.
You know, I was looking for the seal too. So
Poor people. Hijacked. That's the best way I could put it. Hijacked. Their faith, their understanding, their.
I was going to ask, as we walked poor Mrs. Simmons back across the street to her home, if the fellow who was screaming nonsense in the church had been holding anything.
She says she couldn't see that well. She was too frightened.
Well, and I'm going to, ask her to make a pot of tea for her and Harry and thank her for her assistance again and tell her that it's been very helpful that we saw what we saw and that if there's any hope to stop more violence, she did a valiant thing. And then it's off to the club for a stiff round.
All right.
Cads. To prey upon people. To prey upon people.
All right. So you end up getting a drink, but then you go back to the club. You're at the club. You're rather shaken by what you've seen. What else would you like to do? It's still early in the day, but
We could track down the witness, but I mean, I don't know what else she could tell.
Yeah, I think Mrs. Simmons's description was enough that we know who the gentlemen walking away were.
I don't know. I don't know that I agree with that.
Well, I mean, we can see if Mr. Oaksley has a phone, for one thing.
Well, I mean, hear me out. If we're assuming that Naboo has taken human form, what was the point of trying to get all these other artifacts? The eye of Lamatsu, the horn of Alu? I mean, we still have those. Wouldn't those be needed to bring him over to this side?
No. That was not it. It was something else. If you read the notes there, the notes mentioned something about not bringing Naboo over, but bringing over something else. Am I incorrect in that?
Well, as I understood it, there were, we have an entity that may or may not be Naboo that is dangerous and wants to return. Either Naboo was originally perceived as beneficent and turned out not to be, or the later entity is a false Naboo. But regardless, there was an intention to return and dominate the earth. And that's the entity we're dealing with. I think it's safe to say. I mean, that's why that golden statue is of a different form than every other icon of Naboo. Regarding your concern, Mr. Albright, my fear is that whatever passed through the gate that happened in the church and has entered someone, probably Delgado, who was power mad, it might be in him, but not restored to godhood until the ritual that needs to take place at the temple with the appropriate. I mean, we saw from what happened to poor Mr. Punchin that these magical structures, if you will, are extremely specific, and everything has to be just so. So perhaps we've seen Mrs. Simmons witnessed a step toward something that isn't. And she said that the Elphinstone was saying, please hurry. So it's as though there's another step to be taken.
Um, you're back at the club. You have access to all of your notes, all of the body of evidence that you've collected so far. Audrey, do a luck roll. You got it? Okay.
Yeah, 14.
All right. You're going through the notes, seeing if you can find anything. And what you come across was a partial translation uh, uh, that memes enhanced from something that Punchin had written in his book, and it had to do with the writing that was all over Punchin's body.
Right. So, yes, understand that when the time is right and all things are in place, shall the way be open for Nabu to return and walk among us, God on earth made flesh, and he shall be the King of Kings. There shall come a man of subtle arts and the secret ways of magic, a man well versed in things hidden and arcane. He shall be the one to prepare the path for the return of Nabu. Let all men tremble. The sacred seal of Nabu will be shattered, and Nabu will walk once more in a coat of human flesh. Ever shall he seek a greater host until he is risen to his throne. Then shall he feast upon 1,000 souls in preparation for his great ascension. At the temple they shall gather for his ascension ritual. They shall stand and watch and tremble. The Father shall radiate down from above and bless his union with new flesh. Then shall come a new age. Then shall all men see him. The dawn of the age of Nabu shall be upon us, and he will walk among his people, and they shall bow down beneath him and call him Lord, everlasting Father, Master of time and space, or else they shall be crushed beneath his feet. All praise and glory to Yog-Sothoth, the all-in-one and one in all, the opener of the way.
I told you.
And you could do a sanity roll.
All of
I
us?
told you.
Well, yeah, I suppose. Some of you have already taken it for that.
What was that?
I passed.
51.
Yeah, if you pass, just take one.
Fail.
If you fail, do a 1d4.
One, luckily.
Told you.
2.
My sanity's getting low.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Delgado's not longer Delgado. He's Naboo, and he's looking for something better.
I just took 5 points of sanity all within the span of an hour.
Yeah, it's only if you do it in one roll.
Oh, okay. I thought it was if you did it in an hour.
It's 20% on a single day. Will cause problems. All right. So what do you guys discuss?
Well, we know where Delgado lives. We don't know how dangerous he is. We don't know where Elphinstone lives, but he might be staying at Delgado's. I think he must be the man subtle in the ways of magic. Doesn't that seem evident?
Yeah.
Yes, the warlock.
So we basically have to get his entire house warded with a magical ward, and then burn everything in it 1,000 times. And then see if he walks out and laughs at us. I mean,
Audrey,
Would not know how to do that.
Do you know how many people are estimated to be coming to the opening of the temple?
we can call and ask for a projection from that department. I'm sure. I mean, we can expect a throng.
That's what I'm thinking. 1,000 people.
Yes. The
We could hijack just a
other
few people.
question for me is, it's quite specific that everything must be in its place. So if we even prevent one of the objects from being where it belongs.
I agree, and I mean, I can't believe I'm going to make this statement, but I almost want to go to the temple site in the museum and start removing stuff and dumping it into the river, into the Thames.
I understand. You know, I mean, destroying the temple seems very reasonable, but you know, they don't have the Eye of Lamatsu. They don't have the Horn of Alu. They can't go through the ritual. If we understand it, they do seem to have the seal.
Yeah, I'm thinking if let's just make it as hard as we can for them. I want to start putting stuff in boxes and sending it to Timbuktu. And
Yes, I don't know if I don't know how impressive Mr. Delgado's abilities are at this point. Whether he could, you know, retrieve something from a parcel on its way to Timbuktu or not. But he does not have everything he needs. It's about 6 weeks until we're supposed to open the temple.
We don't know anything about this Elphinstone chap. If he is this great magician, this great sorcerer warlock type person, who's making the way for Naboo to be fully ascended.
I think the man who's subtle in the ways of magic is Delgado. I just don't know what abilities he has already.
let's say he's vulnerable until the ceremony. That buys us at least a month. I mean,
That's how I understand it as well. That the temple, the reconstruction of the temple is part of this. But you know, he seems like a perfectly dangerous man before then.
absolutely.
Something else is going to happen soon. Feel it. Just like the last time.
Audrey. You start to think about what you just read. That it sounds like Naboo can change hosts.
Right. He's ever aiming for a more powerful being. Maybe he's even in Elphinstone now and is on his way to being in Delgado. Or going for something higher.
Last week, now a lot has been happening to all of you in the past few weeks. As you say, Audrey, you've barely had time at work. You've barely had time at home. I mean, you've just gone there to sleep. You know you have mail piled up that you haven't bothered to read. And you keep getting this flash in your mind of some of your mail lying there on that little side table next to your door. And there was a light mint green envelope. And you didn't think anything of it at the time. But it was weird. It was weird that you would have this. See, there's this thing that goes on a few times a year in London where people get recognition for a job well done. And last year you worked really hard on some of your projects, and you're working on the temple, you're organizing its build and all of that. You think that you might have an invitation to the royal garden party that takes place this month at Buckingham Palace. 30,000 people go to this thing, and you have to have an invitation to get in. But if Naboo is working his way upward to greater and greater hosts,
That's certainly an opportunity for total ascension. And that is how soon? The Royal Garden Party?
it's in 2 days.
I'll tell the fellows that there's an excellent host available, and someone like Delgado probably goes to these things reliably.
How's that?
So we have 2 days to prevent him from prevailing over all of England, and thus the world. Naboo as Yog Sothoth, or whatever, however that works.
What is this Yog Sothoth?
It's, it was phonetically in the text. I don't know what it refers to.
Does not sound good.
No, just the fact that we couldn't correlate it to anything else in Sumerian is suggestive of something confused or poorly understood. Well, I have a small pistol. And again, we know where Delgado lives. We don't have very much time. I suggest to embracing lunch.
Yeah.
Would there be some way we could call the police on him? Or something?
Yeah, hey, police, there's a interdimensional god that's gonna take over the King of England, so we're gonna shoot him.
Yep.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but yeah, no.
You want him punted.
If I thought that would have worked, I would have been on the phone weeks ago.
Why not just pay Delgado a visit? And
Yeah, I mean, we can try to break the seal before the temple's ready. We could try to injure or kill Delgado and see if that sets back the...
I think the seal might have been broken already to bring, I don't know, maybe not.
That's the thing I hate about religious texts. They're always a little bit too flowery and ambiguous. I'd like a nice solid recipe, 2 teaspoons, cup and a half, 13 minutes.
Crow juice in a circle.
Juice in a circle. If we flip through our great binder of facts, when Delgado was showing off and trying to recruit, did he display any feats of wonder, or did he just have cool stuff?
He just had cool stuff.
And he had a lot of contempt for other people and their understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't turn water into wine or levitate or...
Correct.
Yeah. So he might not be able to do anything, against a hail of bullets. Again, I think the shepherd's pie and a sherry, and then we drive over. He won't expect violence from us. He doesn't know that we know anything.
A shepherd's pie filled with arsenic.
Find out more. Try a different tact and find out more about this Elfstone chap. See if we can find anything. Maybe be able to get to Delgado through him, or vice versa.
I mean, he's in the. We've got a copy of the peerage here at the club. There is an Elphinstone. There's a Lord Elphinstone. I don't know who it currently is, but we think. Yes.
Oh, I don't remember seeing it.
It's PH, not F.
PH.
But, you know, I mean, they were together last night. I don't know why they wouldn't be together now. You know, if you want to see, I mean, there's not going to be only one Elphinstone house. So even if you wanted to do another breaking and entering, I don't know what we'd find there except possibly the seal, and I don't know what we'd do with the seal, and I don't know why things have progressed as far as they have. I don't understand. But there is that arsenal that we were left.
Right.
Maybe I want something more than this, you know, cute little 22 I'm carrying. It's a pity his staff ran off. They seemed like hard men.
Yes, but we do have access to the house.
Yes, we could at least get, you know, some proper, I don't know, bullet slinging things. I don't know how to use them.
Was there anything else other than the firearms that's available there?
I feel like there were a couple of interesting gadgets, but it was pretty much all just guns.
Yes.
There was some nice scotch.
Scotch. I need some more scotch. Yes.
All right. So, what are your plans? What are you going to do next?
I'd say let's at least get some information on this Lord Elphinstone and at least get an idea of who he is.
Okay. Audrey said that, but there's no Lord Elphinstone.
Sorry about that. There is in real life.
Oh, is there?
Yeah. I thought the name looked familiar, so that is a family, but apparently not here.
Well, let's say you find stuff on Lord Elphinstone, and he's like 79 years old.
Been in hospital for months.
Yeah.
Had no heirs. Yeah, the first one was created in 1510 by King James IV, but that's not our Elphinstone. That's some kind of poety dreamer type. That, you know, and that's exactly the sort of person that falls in the sway of some creep like Delgado, who says, "Hey, do this ritual magic with me, and we'll live forever." No, it's, you know, I have no better plan currently than to have a hearty lunch, become as heavily armed as possible, and confront Delgado at his home. I'm open to better ideas. I just don't have one.
That's like going into the lion's den there, and we're,
well, I think that's a plan. And if that's the case, then we will stop there and take up your armed assault next week. Because that'll take a bit.
Hopefully it'll take a bit. That's if things go well.
All right, so we will call it there. Our players included David Gassaway, Ford Fitch, Jason Belinchuk, and Jerry Bryant, with myself as Keeper of the Secrets. We're currently producing up to 4 shows a week with music and sound effects added in post-production. In order to create a richer listener experience, we provide audio-only versions of our shows free for you to download from Podbean or iTunes. The costs involved with the show are provided almost entirely by our patrons. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. If you'd like to support our show, please visit our Patreon account. Just $1 or $2 a month helps us a lot. You can find a link in the description below. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and punch that bell icon for updates on our latest shows, and leave us some comments. We enjoy reading them and answering any questions you might have. This is Tom Rayleigh, together with all the members of our gaming club, inviting you to journey with us once again into the darkness for another adventure into the universe of H.P. Lovecraft and the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. Until next time, good luck and good gaming.